Hi, I'm Lady Genevieve. Today's video is a review of Enola Holmes 2 since Netflix gave me access to a press screener. I know I'm late to doing a review on it, but I didn't actually request a press screener until quite late because I wasn't sure if I was going to ask for one because I knew that I needed to focus and hurry up so that I could finish my Benedict Bridgerton video essay, but I ended up getting that finished and here we are. Before we get into any of the specifics of Enola Holmes 2, if you are not already following me on Letterboxd, then you missed out on my first public bit of feedback about this film, which is that I rated it 4.5 stars out of 5 stars. I know, very high. Initially, when I was watching it, I thought that I would just end up giving it a 4, which is what I gave the first film, but then once we started digging deeper into the layers of the story and seeing how the different facets began to weave together, I had to give it a little something extra in my score. The majority of my feedback is positive, so I will save that for last, since it will take up the majority of the runtime of this video. Now, I can't get into too many specifics because Netflix's terms of accessing a press screener is to not reveal major plot spoilers ahead of its release, but I will still offer some feedback. The general premise, the logline, of Enola Holmes 2 is as follows. Now a detective for hire like her infamous brother, Enola Holmes takes on her first official case to find a missing girl, as the sparks of a dangerous conspiracy ignite a mystery that requires the help of friends and Sherlock himself to unravel. I have just one noteworthy critique for this film, which is that the breaking of the fourth wall is incessant. I was trying to understand the purpose of them doing it as much as they do, and if I had to guess, with doing zero research into trying to find an answer or justification from cast or crew members, it gives off the impression that they are trying to connect Enola to the audience. Millie Bobby Brown being the age that she is and having a fan base whose age range probably skews a bit on the younger side, with a lot of people who are children, tweens, and teens, can watch it and feel like Enola is talking to me and she's making me feel like we're friends. And I'm trying to be able to differentiate between me personally not connecting to something because I'm not the target age demographic versus me having an issue with something that could be considered more so objectively needing improvement. There was a particular moment in the film that served as a final straw when it came to this point where something big was happening. There was energy and momentum in the sequence that was playing out and the music was swelling. And then Enola looks into the camera. And herein lies the problem. It is disruptive to the flow and momentum of the story. For the most part, the storytelling medium, be it film, television, or even theater, exists in such a way that for the most part the audience is meant to be a sort of voyeur. You watch the story play out in such a way that it's like looking in on the lives of the characters through an old-timey keyhole. If she wants to occasionally break the fourth wall, fine, but doing it as much as she does, it breaks the dramatic tension and undermines the stakes in those particular moments. That's how I feel. It's my opinion. Now, let's move on to the film's positives, which are in fact many. To my regular viewers, this probably goes without saying, but if you're not one of my regular viewers and you are new here, hello! I am a fan of Henry Cavill as Superman. I loved Man of Steel, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I am absolutely thrilled that he will be returning to the role of Superman. I also enjoy occasionally seeing him act in other projects. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. is in fact a certified bop. Henry Cavill wasn't as present in the first Enola Holmes film since Enola was on the run and you would only occasionally check in on what her brothers were doing. He is, however, a prominent character in Enola Holmes 2. This is when we finally get to see Sherlock Holmes, the famous detective, working on a case. Sometimes you see him on his own, and other times he is in scenes with Enola. Now, since I'm no stranger to professing my affinity for the DCEU on here, I know that some of my viewers are also DCEU fans, so if your only curiosity for Enola Holmes 2 is whether or not it's got more for Henry to do compared to the first film, it definitely does. Another strength of Enola Holmes 2 is that the story in general feels more mature. The film first opens with her trying to open her own detective agency, but feeling increasingly disappointed when people come in expecting to hire her brother Sherlock. She is consistently underestimated because she is a girl and because she is significantly younger than her brother. As such, part of what drives her in the story is a need to prove herself as a detective. But one of the journeys she has to go on as an individual character is to learn to not insist on doing everything herself. There can sometimes be this idea pushed in media that is made for girls, especially with girl protagonists, where you have to be strong and you have to be capable. And those messages on their own are not bad in any way. But if you are overly individualistic in your approach and your output of delivering that type of messaging across so many different stories, it can start to feel like it's glamorizing being isolated. Enola has to learn in this film that it's okay to ask for help. It does not mean that she is in any way less than clever or capable. She can find strength in not only herself, but in others. Different people have different skill sets, and that theme of finding strength in numbers is all over this story in the best way possible. There are so many things I love about the themes and messaging of Enola Holmes 2. A lot of the details of that I cannot get into without giving away the details of the main mystery that she has to solve, but I can talk a bit about the very beginning of her taking on the case and starting to investigate, since it's all first act stuff that leaves all of the juicy stuff to be experienced on a first watch of this film. Enola's detective agency is a failure, so she is closing up shop when all of a sudden a young girl named Bessie comes in asking for help to find her sister who has disappeared. Once Enola has accepted the case, Bessie tries to offer her a few coins, which is more or less all she has to her name. And we see where Bessie lives. It's nothing fancy by any means, but it's Enola's reaction of refusing to take the money and saying they can figure all of that out later that really stood out to me. It demonstrated a sort of awareness of how massive the stakes were for someone to be asking for help and having very little material offering to pay for that assistance that realistically they should have because it's the right thing to do. And it demonstrated a level of matureness and awareness from Enola that really impressed me as a viewer. Enola is not trusted by certain people in the story who are in the working class because she's posh, and they are skeptical of her claiming to care about the well-being of members of the working class. And the story is a lot more cognizant of class inequality and has something really important to say about it. Enola Holmes may be the protagonist of the story, and her brother and her love interest from the first movie, who is also in this movie, may all be from an elite class of wealth and privilege, but there is no doubt when you watch this movie that the story is a call to action against wealthy, scummy capitalists. I cannot elaborate because of spoilers, but it warms my heart to know that there is a young generation of kids who can watch this movie and hopefully have it leave some sort of an impression on them of knowing that there is strength to be found in numbers. When the movie ends, there is definitely a setup for an Enola Holmes 3. There are things that are introduced in such a way that you can get a sense for what might be brought back in a more prominent place in a story for a third film. And honestly, after seeing how great Enola Holmes 2 was, I am completely on board for an Enola Holmes 3. Don't mess with Henry's schedule if he has to do things for a new Superman movie, because I've been waiting years for that. But once you coordinate all of those logistics of who's going to be filming what and when, I would like to see where this story goes next. Overall, there is a lot of great stuff to get out of the viewing experience, and I already mentioned my issue with the fourth wall breaking. Hopefully they can tone that down a bit in a third film. I also hope that they will fix their use of green screens, or maybe it was blue screens. I'm not sure which one they were using. But the thing you need to understand about Enola Holmes 2 is that there are a lot of beautiful interior sets which are practical. There was a quote floating around somewhere online. I don't know where it went, and I, to be quite frank, do not want to go look for it because I spend too much time on social media anyway. And in this quote, Henry Cavill was talking about how he ended up spending a lot of time hanging out on the sets because he wanted to take in all of those details. Therefore, when you are in the middle of an action sequence and Enola is running, people are chasing her, and you just randomly get a noticeable green screen shot of her on a roof, it's not great. And if you haven't heard me talk about this topic before, I will clarify once again. If visual effects are noticeably poor in their quality, that does not mean that the VFX artists who worked on them are not capable of doing a good job. It means that the people in charge probably did not pay them enough and did not give them enough hours to produce work that was high quality. It's disruptive, especially in a big dramatic chase scene, when so much else is going well for the film, to have these little details mess things up in the flow of the story. But again, overall, I had a great time watching Enola Holmes 2. I highly recommend it, whether you are choosing to watch it because you are a Millie Bobby Brown fan, or because you are a Henry Cavill fan, or just because you want another film to be able to add to your letterbox list entitled El Pueblo Unido Jamás Será Vencido, it most certainly delivers. So be sure to watch this on Friday, November 4th on Netflix. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can also check out some of my other recent movie reviews of Black Adam or Ticket to Paradise. I also recently interviewed famed YouTuber and actress Anna Akana about representation in the entertainment industry, as well as her new film, Blade of the 47 Ronin. So there's plenty to browse through here on my channel. See you in the next one. Bye.